Alright guys, what's going on? In today's video, all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be practicing. We're going to be practicing my gimbal skills, my skills with my Ronin S. So that's what we're going to be doing today, because you can't get better at something if you don't practice it. You need to keep practicing, honing your skills and all of that. That's what this channel is all about. So, without any further ado, let's get straight into the video. Let's go! Alright, so apologies about the camera. I'm using my older camera again because yet again I'm going to be filming on that. I just wanted to do a little bit of vloggy stuff before we get started. I've set up just my standard backdrop set. We've got my nice big white kind of like a curtain situation. I've got my big umbrella light. I've got my panel light. I've also brought my aperture MC down to act like it's a feature light depending on what I'm going to be shooting. I do have an idea, but moving on. I do still have, this is the light stand that I put my microphone on when I'm upstairs in the actual studio in the office, when I've got that set up going. So I've still got my audio recorder attached to it, so just try and ignore that. So my plan is I'm going to be using, actually come me. Alright, so as you can see, I've bumped up the ISO so you can see because it's a bit dark back here and behind the curtain. I've also brought my aperture back here just so you can see a bit better. But what we've got here is we've got a bookshelf with all of our books on, but we've also got, one of the shelves is a alcohol shelf, as you can see down there, where it's got like all of our nice booze, all of our nice gins, I think there's some whiskey there. I see some Cointreau, some various different things. I don't know. And what we're going to be doing with what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be using some of those to take the videos rather, with my Ronin S. So without any further ado, let's set up the Ronin S and get started. Alright, so something that I wanted to speak about while setting up my gimbal is talking about the term practice makes perfect on all of that, because as you probably already know, I'm martial arts instructor as my day job, shall we call it. And in the martial arts world and in plenty of other disciplines, whether that's dance or swimming or cinematography and photography, there's a huge emphasis on the phrase practice makes perfect. You've probably heard it before. It's a very, 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 very common phrase. It's basically what you say to people to give them motivation to keep practicing and keep developing their skills and their discipline. However, I have grown to not really like that phrase, because practice makes perfect makes the idea of perfection achievable. And if you've been in any form of art form long enough, you'll know that perfection, literal perfection, isn't something that's obtainable by anyone, frankly. Like when someone says you've done something perfectly, they don't mean you've done it perfectly. What they mean is they've done it the best that you could have possibly done it. And that's not necessarily the same as being perfect. Perfection is you cannot get any better, and you can always improve your skills, you can always develop your abilities further than you are today. Like a photographer can always develop and become better as a photographer. A dancer can always become more flexible and stronger so they can do more difficult things. Martial artists can always train in a different style to develop skills in a different way. There's no such thing as being perfect in any way, shape or form, particularly when it comes to the arts. So I use a counter to practice makes perfect. I don't use the phrase practice makes perfect for that exact reason. What I use instead is the phrase practice makes consistency. And yes, practice makes perfect. You got the alliteration. It is nice to say. It's pleasant to say. It's good. It's fun to say. But practice makes perfect, and that is practice, 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 practice your punches with the pivots to make it perfect. It's fun to say. It's a fun thing to say, and practice makes consistency. It's not as fun to say. However, the idea behind it is much more obtainable and much more realistic to what you're actually trying to do. When you're practicing, you're not trying to become perfect, particularly if you're relatively new to a given discipline. You're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying to make what you can do consistent. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to be able to do good things consistently. Obviously, to start off with, when you're very much a beginner, you're practicing to improve your skills. But then once you've got the basic skills, you're not practicing to improve them. You're practicing to make them consistent and make the thing that you do every so often really, really well. You're trying to make that almost every time you do it, or if not every time you do it. Because again, you're not going to do the best photo on the planet every single time you take a photo. You're not going to produce the best piece of cinematography every single time you take up a camera. If you did, there'd be no reason to continue, because you've already done the best thing in the world. And chasing that and having those times when you aren't as brilliant with your cinematography, or when you aren't as incredible with your whatever style you are doing, that's absolutely fine. And the term practice makes perfect. If you're practicing every single day, day in, day out, you're doing the same stuff over and over and over and over and over again, and then one day you make a slip up. If you have practice makes perfect ingrained into your head, it's gonna dishearten you massively, because it's gonna be like, well, I'm practicing every single day, why aren't I perfect yet? Why am I still making mistakes? It's because you will be making mistakes. Practice doesn't make perfect. The more you practice, just the more consistent you get. It doesn't mean you're going to get it right every single time and you're going to do brilliantly every single time you do it. It just means that you're going to be more consistent than you were 2 weeks ago, or more consistent than you were a year ago. Remember that developing your skills is a gradual thing. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. You just need to keep looking back on where you were 6 months ago, or 3 months ago, or a year ago, and understanding that you are more consistent with your skills. So yeah, just food for thought. And that's another thing as to why practicing at home and doing everything at home is all well and good. However, if you're practicing bad technique, or if you're practicing bad whatever, then you're going to be consistent with that bad technique, which is why if you're a martial artist, you need to not only train at home, but you also need to go to class. If you're a swimmer and you swim competitively, you don't just go to the swimming pool on your own accord, but you need to be going to your sessions and your training sessions where your coaches are, because the more you practice, the more consistent you'll be. But if you're consistently training poor technique, and in the world of photography, there aren't many photography classes, there aren't many photography things. You can go to college and you can go to university and stuff like that to learn about photography, and yes, that's all well and good, but you should also be, once you've progressed past that point, you need to be constantly researching into photography, whether that's subscribing to a magazine, or watching YouTubers and watching content creators and watching and following photographers on Instagram and stuff like that. That's a really good way of learning more in a more active way. So then when you practice it, you're not just practicing your poor skills, you could also be practicing those skills, if that makes sense. Hey guys, Editing Jack here. Just a really quick couple points that I wanted to add in here that I didn't talk about in the main video. First one, yes, as I said in the main recording of the video, consuming media and photography-based media is a really good way of learning and will help with you practicing in your own time and stuff like that. It's also a great thing to interact with other photographers and collaborate with other photographers, whether that's going to a friend who's also in the industry and going, can I help you with a shoot, or asking them to help you with the shoot, because then you've got another mind to come up with ideas on the day. Or if you're helping them, they will be doing stuff in a way that you wouldn't normally. Or the exact inverse, if you're doing something that they might not do normally, they might say, oh, that's not how I would do it, I would have done it this way. And then that will make you start thinking of different ways of taking photos or taking videos. As well as that, just a more meta question for you guys. My camera at the moment, the EOS RP, when I film with my 50mm on this camera, I can film 4K, 1080p and 720p with 1080 and 720 both being able to film at 25 and 50 frames per second. However, as soon as I switch it to my main lens, my kit lens, which is the Canon Zoom L EFS 18-55, just reading the bit around the edge of the ring. Both options for the 1080p resolution are no longer available to be selected. You can still see them on there, but you just can't select them. So whenever I'm filming B-roll with my main camera, if I want to be filming in slow-mo, I need to be filming it at 720p, and I can't even do it on my I can't film it on my old camera, because with that camera it doesn't film at 720p. And one of the biggest selling points of me getting this camera in the first place was the slightly higher frame rate at a reasonable price. Is it something in the settings that I have just not got about doing, or is it a matter of I need to get a new lens for my main run and gun shooting things? Because yes, it's all well and good being able to use the nifty 50 and still be able to film at those higher frame rates. The issue is I'm stuck at 50mm at the moment with needing to film at 1080p in slight slow motion. So please let me know in the comments down below if you know the answer to that question, whether it's a setting that I'm just missing in the camera or if it's the issue with the lens. So anyway, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Anyway, so I've finished doing that. That's my rant done. So now all I need to do is grab a bottle of something from there, a bottle that looks nice, set up the lights, make sure the lights all look good, and then take some blooming videos. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll time lapse me taking these videos on my GoPro over there, and then I will get back to you. So yeah, I will see you on the other side of this time lapse. Let's go. No, it's going to be a time lapse, so I'm not going to have that transition. This is a bit awkward. Bye. Alright, and we are back. I've finished filming all of that stuff. I was filming for about an hour. However, I would be going for longer and moving the lights around more and doing stuff like that. However, I need to have my lunch and go get the car cleaned and get to work. So I've got stuff that I need to do today, unfortunately. So that means I'm going to need to call the video here. But let's see what that looks like. I'm going to put some editing to it. I'm going to put some editing to it. I'm going to put some sound to it. I'm going to put some sound effects in it, and we'll see how it looks. So yeah, without any further ado, let's crack on with the edit, and then that'll be the end of the video. I'll see you later, guys. Bye.